Let me know if you all can see my screen.
Yes, sir,
Yes,
screen is
visible.
visible.
Okay. So, firstly, I'd like to thank Smita, Nandi, Siddharth, Kunj, and if I have missed out anyone, sorry for that. But everyone part of Pune Tech community, thank you so much for joining us this Saturday. I'm sure, and I already have seen the tracks which are running parallelly, really great sessions which the team always tries to bring in for everyone. And to everyone who is listening to us, probably thank you so much for spending your time on Saturday, listening to us, trying your best to learn from almost whatever possible what is going across AI agents, be it Azure cloud service, be it Google, AWS, wherever it's hosted on. But thanks a lot for spending your time with us, and we'll ensure that we give some things back to you when you leave from the session. So you learn something which is either new for you, or maybe if you already know, then maybe a quick revision or recap for you just to um, double check on whether whatever you've learned is similar to what we are showcasing, or if you have any feedback for us, feel free to share. Or if you have worked on something similar, some experience is always welcome. So thanks a lot, everyone, for giving us the opportunity. I myself am Shrushti Shah, and I'm working with Rapid Circle as senior consultant. I'm also a Microsoft MVP in business applications, and I'll hand it over to Bhushan, and then later we'll walk you through what we are here for and what's the agenda. Over to you, Bhushan.
Thank you so much, Shrushti. And hello, everyone. First of all, thanks a lot to the entire organizing committee for having us here. My name is Bhushan Gawale. I'm a Microsoft MVP now in business applications. I had one for AI platform earlier. I'm also a TOGAF certified architect and an Azure architect. I work as a chief AI officer at Rapid Circle India. So a lot of my work is around helping organizations um, uh, to move from AI ideas into production grade solutions that actually work in the real world. So yeah, so as you can see, the topic, the name here, the hosted agents. So today I'm very excited about this one, is because hosted agents sits exactly in that space between AI innovation and the actual production realities. So yeah, looking forward to walking through this with you all today. Back to you, Shrushti.
Hey, thank you, Bhushan. As Bhushan highlighted, that many of us are aware about how you can go ahead and build agents, but then when it comes to productionizing it, and I won't say it only specific for agents, because any other enterprise applications which you build or solutions, same scenarios you often come across, which is, okay, I have built something, now I want to productionize this for my end users. So there are additional more guardrails or more things which we ideally know, but we overlook them. So what are those, and how hosted agents are solving those problems for you? That is the main agenda for today's session. And what we are bringing in for today's session is, we'll be walking you through the technical aspects of hosted agents, what hosted agents are, how you can build an hosted agent, a quick demo, and just a high level architecture of how hosted agents work behind the scenes, what exactly those are, and a business value from the lens of business folks who are listening in or who might watch this recording later. So, how it can add value. But keep in mind that this is something which is in public preview. So, that's just a heads up for you all before you go ahead and start building this for enterprise production ready solutions or agents. Just keep this noted that is right now in public preview. Okay, so we are here with a very clear agenda, which is, after this session, you'll leave with one, which is a clear mental model. Which, for example, you yourself should be able to explain to anyone who doesn't know Foundry hosted agent, maybe in one or two lines. Very easily, you should be able to explain them what Foundry hosted agents are. And another thing, as Bhushan highlighted, that the space where we build a lot of things, but then when we move to production, be it agent, be it solution, be it application or product, there are a lot of other things which we often tend to overlook. So how Foundry hosted agents helps you to overcome those problem areas as well. So that gap, we'll see how it is able to bridge that. And trust me, it is real. It's not something which we are going to just show it for the sake of demo. But then I think Bhushan will help you showcase this as live demo. And we also have the code which we have hosted. Probably when we go deeper after a few slides, you'll be able to see a live demo, how it is deployed, and any questions, and we'll take up at the end. So at the end, ensure that after this session, you have your kind of explanation of hosted agents, and you can just go out and explain to anyone who isn't aware of it. So that's the main takeaway for you after this session. Now, let's talk about a real problem for as of now which exists. And let's not constrain ourselves to an agent AI. For now, you can consider this as any enterprise grade solution which you're trying to build. Okay. Now, when you're building anything, of course, you have a lot of things at your hand, which is like framework for you, which helps you to build them. You build an application, you build a solution, you host it, deploy it, and then what we do is we share it with the end users for them to use, right? Any of these solutions or applications. It can be hosted anywhere, either on cloud, either on different applications like Teams, Power Platform, anywhere, or even your Azure. You can host it wherever you want as per your choice. But then building is something different, while productionizing it, there are two different angles to it. Now, when you are productionizing any of a solution, these are the few main things which I was highlighting that we should know about, but then we should also check whether your solution is able to meet all these things, or is able to check all these things as well. So let's go one by one what these problems can be. One is isolation. So for example, if I talk about and a chat application or an AI chat based application, now if I'm trying to converse with that agent, this is me as a user who is conversing, and I'm asking a couple of questions, for example, or related policies which I want to which I need the answer for. And maybe Bhushan as another entity, he goes to the agent, he again converse with the agent. So now when Bhushan goes to the agent, will it help to see the chat history which I was conversing with? No, right? Because Bhushan altogether sees his own plain vanilla session. Whenever you go to any of the AI assistants for that matter, M365 Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, anything, do you ever see others' conversations as chat history or in your logs of history? No, right? Why is that the case? Because each user has its own session which is maintained. So, for example, when Shrushti goes, I can only see my past chat history, and I also have the flexibility to create or spin up my own plain vanilla where I can converse from scratch. Same goes for Bhushan. So that isolation as per each user is something which we would want to have that, of course, because you don't want what Shrushti is conversing, like the data leak of Shrushti to another user, which is Bhushan. We would want to avoid that, and that's not the agenda as well. So isolation is something which we would want to have. Then what next? It's the durable state. So for example, when I am conversing with my agent, let's take an example. Hey, I have this PowerPoint deck which I'm presenting right now, and I would have conversed with the AI based chat application saying that can you provide me the summary of what I'm going to present to Pune Tech community for the Agent Tech AI day which we are running through. So it might just give me the summary, but next time, for example, after some time or maybe tomorrow, I go to the same chat based application and I start conversing on for the same context with the same data, this PowerPoint deck. But then now I have different queries, which is like, hey, can you help me understand what this architecture is, what Foundry hosted agent is, how can I get the business value, etc. Now my questions are different, but my grounded data is still the same, which I want to fetch the response from. So that still remains the same. So hence, it should also remember what you did in the past, and accordingly, it should help you take that conversation ahead, and not like, okay, it is now slate zero, ground zero, and you start conversing again. You start spinning up all the data, whatever you want from scratch. That's not the intent. So that's the durable state. It ensures that whatever you have conversed, it is having that information, and then next time when you come back, you can pick it up from where you left. Now, identity and permission. Again, whenever you work on anything, whenever you build any kind of applications, be it AI agents, be it agentic solution or non-agentic solution, there is always a layer of identity and permissions. So we don't want everyone to access everything, who this agent is for, like who is the audience for this agent, who can interact with the data which is sitting inside the agent. So all those permissioning things should be intact as well, intacted in your agent when you're building. And of course, identity, because just like any other application, each application has its own identity. Even your AI agents would have their own identity, which is like Entra ID. Now, I think you might be aware, if you aren't, then each agent, be it Copilot Studio agent or Foundry based agent, will have its own identity, just like a user identity called object ID. Entra ID for agents are also there, so that you can identify what this application is and what this agent is doing. And you can add more guardrails and or permissionings on top of it. Observability, I think whenever, let's consider your MT65 Copilot, which you haven't built, you just have got the access to that assistant, you're conversing with it. But then of course there would be some guardrails, which is, if I'm typing anything unethical, I would get an error message, or I would get some plain text saying that I can't converse on such topics, please help me with so and so area so that I can help you, right? Now, each these conversations which you're having with agent, of course it would be locked somewhere. If it, because if an organization wants to see their adoption of MT65 Copilot, how many users are using it, or for what purpose users are using it for, and where users are getting most benefited from this particular AI assistant or tool. And these kind of telemetry, logs, traces, neither organization won't ever provide the custom ones or plug it the custom ones for maintaining these logs. They don't do that. Organization just takes the licenses, provides it to the users, and then you're good to go. But then all those governance guardrails, which is be it traces, monitoring, or analytics, that you get out of the box. How do you get that? That's with the tool which is provided. And who manages that? That's managed by Microsoft. So observability, you don't have to do that, but you get it. But this is again one thing: when you build your own custom solution, you need to ensure that you also have the observability. But then you don't check this whether you would definitely want to have that, or it is already having it, or custom needs to be built. Scaling, of course, when you start scaling, probably when n number of users are going to use it, then even whatever you've built today, that should that should sustain, or it should be sufficient for them to use, irrespective of tomorrow the different frameworks come in, you have to change it, a little bit of changes to your code. That should be it. You shouldn't your solution shouldn't break because of the nature of scaling, be it in terms of end user, be it in terms of code or frameworks which keeps coming in, or the versions which you are building on top of. So these are the few areas which we have identified so far. There can be more as well, but these are the five main key areas where often we overlook and we just try to build. But then, have you ever ensured that when you're building this, building AI agents or agentic solution or anything, to also adhere to all these five key areas, to whenever you're trying to productionize it? If you have done this, then all good. I think you are on the right track. But if you haven't, then this is something which you have to look out for when you start building, from now on, your any solutions, agentic or non-agentic solutions, for before you make it production ready. But then now you would be like, okay, why Shrushti is explaining why these problems to us, while we already know that we should solve them, and how it is linked to hosted agents. So that's where I'll come to now. Before I help you understand how these problems are getting solved, let's understand first, just so that everyone is on the same page, what exactly an agent is. Now, agent, you can say them as a chat wherein you can go converse, but then is it just a chat application? No, right? Agent serves some goal, and then what agents are best at doing? They are best at reasoning. They are using some LLM model. So, for example, I go to ChatGPT. Do I have to ground ChatGPT with my knowledge? Of course, I can. I can provide my data. But then, even if I go without my data and I start asking that, hey, I have this GitHub repository and I want to share this with one of the contributor, how can I share that GitHub repository to the contributor? So, if at all I'm like very new to code, I don't know how to do it, I can just go to ChatGPT and leverage that while I don't have any knowledge for around GitHub. No data files, no grounded data, nothing. But still it is able to answer me, right? It is not just about putting your query, response agent responding it back, but it's also about agent taking that actions on your behalf. So for example, if I go to an agent and I say that, hey, I want to reset my password for, let's take an example, my Microsoft account. So can you help me do that? What agent will do is, hey, can you provide me the password which you want to do it? Ideally, it should not does such activity unless human is involved in the loop and human is providing that information, and then it takes that input, it does that activity on your behalf, which is resetting the password on your behalf. But how it is doing it, it is using some API, some tools, and then taking that action on your behalf. So agents can also perform tasks, agent can also help you with the responses, and agent can also work in autonomous manner. But then what is needed for an agent, and what exactly agent is, to summarize, it is just language model that can take actions, but it is not just restricted to chat. So you provide a goal, which is either getting some response back, or it should listen to a trigger on which it would take some actions and then reason over it. And what that reasoning layer, where it comes, how it does that, it is going to use your LLM model, and then acting, which is on your behalf, or only after you approve, that is done via different tools, APIs, connectors. So that is what your agent is, a combination of goal, reason, and action. So now that we are aware of what agents are, and I'm sure everyone in the call now are pretty much aware of AI, agents, different LLM models, how this fits, how agent fits into your big ecosystem like Foundry. So Foundry is a portal where what you can do is you can build your agents, you can deploy your agents. Not just that, you can integrate your agents with either knowledge, tools, or different connectors. Again, that's tools in a way. And then you can also operate, which is you can see you can run evaluation frameworks on top of it. You can govern your agents which you have built. Also, which I was talking about, open telemetry, which is observability, the traces, the analytics, monitoring, versioning, identity, everything comes under operate. So all those things you can do with Foundry. And Foundry is that platform which provides you to do everything. And again, it has a plethora of models. It hosts plethora of models. You can pick whichever you want based on your use case. So that's again there. And you can also refer, if you are not aware of which model should I use for my use case, then you can go to Foundry. You can see the different analysis, be it coherence, be it groundedness, on different factors. It will help you understand why, for what things this model is best for, and for this use case, why this model is best for. So all those things you can go and evaluate from your Foundry portal. Now let's take one step into your Foundry. Now, from where we started with the problem. Of course, we are yet to close that gap of how we're trying to solve that problem, but we know what agents are, how agents can be put it into a bucket or a platform called Foundry. Now, what Foundry offers, you know, right? That you can build agents, you have models, etc., operational observability, all good. But what kind of agents you can build in Foundry? So there are two types of agents. So whenever you go to your Foundry, as of now, probably I'll share my screen, a demo screen, and I'll show it to you as well. But then you go to your Foundry portal. You have the flexibility to build agent there. You have to spin up a Foundry project. You go to build into, you go to build, you can create an agent. But do you need a code for that? No, I don't need a code for that. I can just create an agent, and I just have to select the deployment model. I can plug it with knowledge, with tools, with connectors, and I can configure a few settings as well. That's all it. You can do it. But then, did I code anywhere? Did I configure? Of course, I just made some small configurations of integrating it with different tools, knowledge, etc., or different models which I would want to. But that's not code, right? It's just portal setup, which we ideally do. And that's what one type of agent, which is prompt agents. That's called as prompt agents. You don't need any code. You just spin it up, configure it from your portal, and then it's ready for you to run. And then you can go test it in the playground, perform some RAG, which is like, if there is a knowledge, you get the response based on your queries, which is grounded with your knowledge. And then you don't have anything to maintain, zero infrastructure. Everything is managed and maintained by Microsoft for you. You can also deploy them to either Teams or to M365 Copilot, but that's one kind. Now you would ask me that, hey, this is like good. It's good for some scenarios, but I have my way of writing or building an agent, which is I come with my framework, which is either it can be LangGraph, it can be Microsoft Agent Framework, or anything, Anthropic, whatever framework you want to use. That's something which is for the developers. So they will be like, I want to write my code in any of the framework, and I don't even want to use OpenAI protocols. Maybe it can be any custom protocols provided by any other agent any other agentic provider. And how can I still go ahead and host it on Foundry? Is there any way in which I can do that? Of course there is. So you don't have to worry about which framework you're using, which protocols you're using, or how to host it, be it the nature of any kind of agent, be it multi-agent, single agent, orchestrator agent. You don't have to worry about it. You have now one area called as hosted agents where you write your own code in any framework, you use any protocol, you can deploy it to a container, and then that's it. Your agent is deployed to Foundry. But then now when you go to Foundry, you go to your agents section, you'll see that that agent which you have deployed will sit as a custom, will have a type which is called as hosted agents. So that's what hosted agents are. Prompt agents from the playground, no code, but hosted agents, you have that whole flexibility, customizations at your end, where you can bring in any framework, any protocol, any container, and just deploy it. And that can be any kind of agent as well. So now you see that statement which I've put it in the deck. For prompt agents, start here for most assistance, which means if you're very new to your agent building journey, and probably even for your coding journey, you don't know if at all I don't know how to code, but I want to build an agent, then you can consider this something which is kind of a low code or no code, where you go build agent from the interface, but then it might help you with some areas which is like RAG or tool based processes, but then it might not help you to get all your customizations. I can't go to the agent and say that, hey, I also want to use Microsoft Agent Framework in this agent, but you can't do that because Portal is only going to provide you, build an agent for you, how the portal is going to do it. You don't have that customizations at your hand on which framework this agent is built on top of. But then you can do that via hosted agents. You go write a code in any framework, and then you containerize it, deploy it, all good. It's running on all on under your custom variations, whichever you want to perform. And however you want to build that agent, you can do that. So that's the hosted agents for you. And hence, reach for this only when you bring real code. And if your intent is just simple RAG, then don't shy away from building prompt agents as well. That's again very much useful for some scenarios. So we are not saying that hosted agents is going to be replaced by prompt agents. No, each agent has its own specific pros, and you have to identify when you want to go for hosted agents and when you want to go for prompt agents, and that's the difference which we are putting it for you on this slide. Now, what is hosted agent? Now that you know that you can build some agent where you can bring your own customizations however you want, but let's take more deeper analysis of what exactly is hosted agent. So hosted agent is, as mentioned on the deck, that your code, any framework, or even uh, none of the frameworks, just build it in your own Python language, Python code, package it. Foundry will build the container for you, and it will provide the endpoint. It will provide like your private custom endpoint for each agent. It will create the identity for your agent, and all the traces, sessions, everything is managed. You don't have to worry about it. So everything in Foundry runs it box is managed by Foundry. So simple, your code packaged as container, and you run, but everything managed by Microsoft infrastructure. So that's what hosted agent is. And now let's see more in more depth the architecture of what hosted agents are and how exactly it runs. Of course, just by layman language, I know it's code. I can deploy it, or it's containerized and I can deploy it and managed by Foundry. But then what exactly is happening behind the scenes? So this is what is happening behind the scenes, how your Foundry hosted agents are working. So you see that this is your code. Let's get a pointer. Yeah, this is your code, and you see this any framework, either it's Langgrave, OpenAI, Claude, SDK, custom, anything. What it does is Foundry, you bring your code, you package it, and then Foundry builds it and pushes it to your container. So you don't necessarily have to use this container, which Foundry builds it for you. You can also have your custom container, which Bhushan will walk you through, either Docker or Kubernetes or any other container which you want to. But then this is something very optional. Foundry builds it for you. But if you want to have a custom container, if you want to deploy it there, still that's possible. So container image is there, and then Foundry builds it, pushes it, and this is what your Foundry agent service it now goes to Foundry agent service, where it is again, you see it is managed by Microsoft, managed Foundry agent service. Now this is your agent, which is pushed inside your Foundry, and what it provides you, what it creates it for you. Now Foundry pulls the image from your container. It provisions the compute. So whenever I go to your Foundry hosted agent, I'll show it in action as well. It will always create a compute for me, and I can converse with it. But then apart from this, what it does, it assigns an entry ID. Each agent will now have an entry ID, which means its own identity. So this agent will have its own identity, and it will also expose a dedicated endpoint. So I can use this agent wherever I want. Maybe I can spin up a front end, I can consume this endpoint and call this endpoint, and I can have an agent deployed there as well in my front end. So this is what all you get as part of Foundry. You don't do it. It just does it for you, the Foundry agent service. So you can later on, you can add more, like you can plug in the Foundry model, you can use different tools and different Azure services as well with your agent. But everything is managed and maintained by Foundry agent service. Now, if you read the closing end note, the open telemetry, versioning, lifecycle, observability, session state, everything, you don't have to worry about it. It's handled automatically. So consider this similar to your uh, Copilot Studio. So when you go to Copilot Studio, you build an agent, you just build an agent, you deploy it to any of the channels. Copilot Studio, for those who aren't aware, that's a low code, no code tool to build an agent. What we ideally do is we go to the agentic tool platform, we build an agent, and then we deploy it. But we don't worry about the versioning. I mean, of course, we have that flexibility provided by platform out of the box. We can go to different versions, compare what is different between different versions, the life cycle of the agents which are built, the traces, monitoring, analytics, the session state, you don't worry about it. That's all provided by the platform itself. You just build agent and you deploy it. Rest all, whether the problems which we spoke about, the permissioning, session, um, isolation of the different sessions, then all the different five problems which you spoke about at the start, all those five are taken care of by the hosted agents now. I think now you would be relating well why those five key problems which you were highlighting whenever you go towards productionizing, how hosted agents are solving them. So you see, it's all managed and maintained by Foundry agent service automatically, and you don't have to worry about it. So you freely go to your Visual Studio Code, build an agent, deploy it, containerize it, deploy it, and then you're good to go. You don't have to worry about all those overheads of problems which we stated, which we get when you productionize it. So that's all taken care of. Now let's go ahead. This is the real architecture that was just a process to show you simply. Again, reiterating on the same. It's just your code bringing in any framework. I'll come to what response API adapter is in some time, but then your code, containerize it, and then you see Foundry agent service takes care of identity, endpoint, scaling, and observability. You don't worry about it. Now, what exactly response API adapter is? This is really important layer, and why it is important, I'll tell you. So let's take an example. You're building an agent, and that agent is using different frameworks. But then this service should also able to understand, take your query and respond it back to whatever you're looking out for. So there are there are few endpoints which we ideally use. So such as OpenAI responses endpoint. Now what this adapter does is it takes your query or code in any framework which you have provided. It doesn't do, you don't have to worry about if I write in, should I write it in this framework or only in this framework? No, you can write it in any framework. And that's what hosted agents provides you to, provides the flexibility. But how it is providing? It is providing via response API adapter. This adapter is very flexible enough. You write it, you provide your code in any framework, and it takes your queries. It helps you to fetch a response back. And that thing of taking, go ahead, write it in any framework, and your Foundry agent service is able to understand your query in any framework and able to respond back right. That layer, that thing is resolved by response API adapter. Adapter simply means in layman language, again, you plug it in and you plug it in this adapter, and it is good to go for you to use. You don't have to worry about whether I'm using type B, type C. That adapter is created for you to plug any kind of service, and it will help you to charge your your devices, right? Similarly, for OpenAI or hosted agents, it does the same thing. Response API adapter will help you get your responses back no matter what framework or language you write your code to or what your code is on. So this is what hosted agents help you to do. And always I'm emphasizing on responsive adapter. I think even Bhushan will help you how this is framed in your code when we walk you through the code. Okay, so now that we know what hosted agents are, how it is trying to solve that problem, now that you know that it's not a problem for a developer, you just have to build it, and everything is managed by Foundry hosted agent service. Now, we also saw the problem of productionizing. One was isolation in sessions. Now, this is safe by default for your hosted agents. You don't have to worry about your sessions mixing it into the other sessions. Why? Because every session, it will bring its own compute because we have containerized it and it's working in its own isolated sandbox. Now that you know, whenever each session is spinned up, be it Shrushti, be it Bhushan, Shrushti asking multiple queries or spinning up new chats. So even I can go and create n number of chats dedicated for each different stream for myself. Maybe first chat, I only want to chat about my organization policies, but now I don't want to check anything about policies, but I want to see how I can take this session more nicely and what are the key takeaways for end users like you. So this is like two different contexts, but and hence for that I want to bring up a new session. So all sessions will have its own compute, but then you don't have to worry about how it is going to work given there are three stages of your session lifecycle as well. So if at all you are actively working, conversing with your agent, your compute is still running, requests are routed to your LLM models and it will respond back. It will have its own memory, own life system, etc. Same goes for each session. Three different sessions running parallelly, isolated from each other. While let's take an example, I've done with conversing with that agent, and I am no more in that screen in that session. So what happens is that goes into an idle state. Up to 15 minutes, it goes to an idle state. The compute is now deprovisioned, and still the state is persisted, which means whatever I've conversed with so far, of course, you would want that, right? You don't want it to be erased because you would want to take that conversation back up again. And then if you come back again, which is resumed, it was in idle state, still all data is there, nothing is gone away. It's just that the compute is deprovisioned. So compute is not active and you're not charged on that compute. You're only charging for whenever your compute is working. So resumed state, it's like your new compute. It's again provisioned compute for you because it was deprovisioned, and now you can pick up your state wherever you left it and you start conversing it automatically. You won't even feel any glitch or you won't even feel any lag anywhere. It's just happening behind the scenes for you. That's how every computes work. So this is what it provides you. One session physically cannot see another. That's what we are providing isolation, and that's how we are also making the safety for each user, and they can also pick up the conversations where they have left from. So this is what sessions, that is how it works for you when you work with Foundry hosted agents. Now that you know the sessions isolations all works fine, how do you converse with your agent, which is Foundry hosted agent? So there are two ways to call it. One is responses, which we already saw as part of response adapter, and then the other is invocations. So response, it's something which is only compatible to OpenAI. This is something which you will also see as a default one, even as part of our Microsoft documentations, that you go ahead and use responses. And why? So because responses is like compatible to OpenAI, and we always go ahead and use GPT 4.1, 5.1, 5.5, all those models. But then if you you have your own custom way of building, maybe it's non-OpenAI framework, then you go ahead and use invocations where you can fetch the information from your agent, and this is the way in which your agent is going to talk to your client. So these are the two different ways in which you can talk. One is responses and the other is invocations. The only difference is one is OpenAI compatible, the other is free for you to use any way in which you want to use it, irrespective of, it shouldn't be OpenAI, it can be anything, your own payload, you bring it. Now responses, you can consider it like your standard power socket plugin and it just works. While invocations, it wires up for you from scratch. It doesn't see which framework it is, whether it is OpenAI or whether it is Claude or LangGraph or LangChain. But this, I think, we'll also see how we are using responses, or when we should use invocations when we walk you through the demo. Now we are coming back to the circle from where we started. What it takes off from your plate, you don't have to worry about all these problems when you productionize this hosted agent. It takes off isolation from your plate, because now that we know every session runs in its own VM isolated sandbox, and it has its own dedicated compute, memory, and life system. Identity, we already know every agent, hosted agent, will have its own entire agent ID, so that you can use this anywhere in your front end. You can plug it in with any tools, services as well. State, files in context will persist the state whenever it's idle, when you are not using it. All those sessions will be stored for you, whether it is idle, resumed, or in any state it is. It is going to persist all your data, even when it is in idle state. And you just resume back, you'll have it again back with you. Observability, you don't have to worry about customizing your monitoring traces or conversation transcripts, etc. It brings with it managed framework. You don't have to worry about it, just provides you that out of the box. Scaling per session, you already know, you don't have to manage that again. You you can scale this as and when you want. It's just that you need to ensure which framework you're using. If there are any changes, go back to your code, plug it plug it in as per your framework, deploy it, and it should be all good. It will not break even if you're scaling it up. So this is all it takes off your plate. And now this is important for the architects who are majorly looking out from the lens of when we are going to build this agent, when we are going to productionize this, what it should use, like which model should be used, which model or which framework it should follow. So it's up to the different scenarios which they are going to build on, and which use cases. So it can be multi-model, it is like multi-framework, and you don't have to lock in saying that this is the only thing which you can use. No, that's not the thing. You can pick any model, you can pick any framework, trim it as per your business scenario, committed to the platform, not to the model or framework, and everything is protected as we saw. Everything is managed, and then good to go. Publish it, deploy it anywhere in your channels, whatever is useful for you, and then they are good to use. So this is what is good for the architect and developers who are going to build this and strategize how and what we should build. Now, this is something which we'll talk more about in the demo. But before I move towards the demo, let me stop sharing and I'll go to my Foundry. Let's go to the Foundry. Let's quickly understand the difference which we called out, the prompt-based agent and the hosted agents. So if I go to my Foundry, so all you have to do is just go to Foundry, Microsoft Foundry. You create your own Foundry resource. That's how you create it. Just simple. But for that, you need a project as well. You provide a default project name. It will create a Foundry project for you. That's what I've already done in respect of time. So this is the Foundry project. If I go to this Foundry project, I just have to open this in the portal, Foundry portal. It will open the Foundry project for me. This is how it will see it. And you'll find a lot of things here. One is models. If I go to discover, you'll see all the different models which we're talking about, the plethora of models which you can pick based on your usage. You can find fine tune with different filters, supported features, source, collections,
Hi,
and
Shrushti.
deployment
Just
options.
gentle reminder that we have a 5 minutes left. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Smita. We might need 5 more minutes. I think I overran, but I just might need 5 more minutes, maybe, if that's fine. So this is what Foundry provides you, all the different models. And then quickly I'll go to agents just to show you the key difference of how you can differentiate prompt and hosted agents. So this, let's go to build, let's go to agent, and this is the difference, your prompt-based agent, and this is your hosted agent. But how hosted agents, how this is a new category or type introduced, and how have I deployed this? Maybe we'll quickly see it in action. But prompt-based, you just need to create on-click agent, build an agent, and then you'll find an agent just from few configuration steps, and this is what you get. You configure it, add knowledge, tools, etc. but I'll give the space to Bhushan. I think I took a lot of time. Sorry for that, but over to you, Bhushan.
Superb. Thank you for that, Shrushti. So yeah, just probably it's worth Shrushti showing just one chat and just walk the audience through the interface and what sort of details, traces, monitors that we get,
Sure.
so that it becomes very easy to understand. And then we can go back to slides.
Okay. Do you want to add points here? I'm in
Yeah,
hosted
yeah, so
agent.
basically what we are seeing on screen here is the interface through which this is a very standard interface that even when you would have created the prompt-based agent, the interface would have looked the same. So that's the sort of consistency that you always get. Um, if you can, Shushti, just type in any message. So what happens is the moment you type in a message, that session gets established. The micro VM, which is a compute behind the scene, that gets created for you. So the first compute, because probably this is going to be the very first message to the agent for now, since last 15 minutes. So the first session will get established. So that's why probably that warm up time will be required for the first session. There we go. We have the response on the right. What you can see is the entire log stream that is baked in for you. So you don't have to worry about writing those different traces and finding those traces. So the portal itself shows you that. If you go to the monitoring tab, so you have all the hotel monitoring built in for you. It becomes easy to troubleshoot any issues, errors, debug those performance issues, go through those operational metrics, etc., etc. There is this evaluation optimization that could be a separate session in itself, but then you get the flexibility to measure the outcome or the output of your agent, the way it is behaving, the way it is functioning, etc. But that's how basically you get to interact with your agent. So now, because this agent, now if we can quickly go back to the code, um, we can check how this agent was created. The main point here is you are bringing in any SDK that you would want here. So if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will be able to see the way this agent is created. So line 54, if you take a look at that, so we are declaring an agent definition. We are just calling it as some agent, giving it some name, putting in some instruction, and stitching the model together. And now if you notice all the way at the top, you will see some packages that I have added. This is a Python based agent, and we are using the OpenAI agent SDK here to create that agent. Now that agent that gets deployed. This is an open repository that we already have. The link will be shared in the deck also probably at the end of the session with all of you. So you can always go through the code and also check how this gets deployed. There is a dedicated readme.md that walks you through different steps. So rather than spending time there, I'll quickly focus on that adapter part that Shrushti talked about. So if you go back to the main.py, Shrushti, yeah, and scroll all the way to the bottom. So this is that adapter all the way further down. Yeah, so that app.response handler is that adapter for you. So basically what this adapter is doing, so if I want to put this in a layman's term, so think of it like a phone operator that you have in the restaurant. So it usually answers the call, takes your order in the right format, and then routes it to the kitchen. So keeps that line open while the order gets prepared and then delivers the final response. So all of that magic is happening here. And that's why it is a disconnected model wherein you can still bring in your own agent SDK, and then Foundry does all that magic for you. And then that's how your agent gets connected with the actual platform, which is Foundry runtime. So that's that. And if we go back to the slides now again, you'll be able to now understand why that BYO contract, where exactly that magic was happening. So if you see the your code, the dark blue section there, so this is what you take care of. You focus on your own business logic. You bring your own dependencies, libraries, etc. At the top in the white box, what Foundry handles is your post responses, SSC streaming, health and readiness probes, open telemetry, app insights, everything is being taken care for you. So that's why it is very, very powerful because it means the entire runtime burden is taken on by the platform while your code remains as a standard SDK rather than you building something very platform specific, and you don't have to worry about that gluing things up. So it's just one response handler and you are good to go. Now, moving on, in the respect of time, we can switch from technical mechanics to the business outcomes. So you can easily guess by now is very easy, right? So faster to production. You can skip your months of infrastructure plumbing and move from prototype to very well governed running agent in days rather than in quarters that used to happen earlier, right? So that's one of the benefit. Second is you're basically deploying and building something that is governed by default. So all the things that we talked about, identity, isolation, guardrails, audits, they're all part of the runtime. So which lines up what security and compliance team usually ask as a first question. Third is very obvious flexibility of running it without having to do any lock-in. Like I said, you can use any framework, any model. So you're not betting on the whole stack and on a technology choice. Fourth is, which is the last, is you are paying what you use for. The model is consumption based, idle session scale to zero. That means you don't have to worry if no one is using your agent, then you probably won't be charged for any compute cost, any model cost, because there are no tokens that are being consumed. So the cost tracks usage more closely than your reserved capacity. That used to be model earlier when you want to deploy your code to Azure or any of the cloud provider platform and make it functional there in production. You always have to pay for the compute and memory part. So this is not just a developer convenience story. It is also a production story, like I was saying earlier. So it's also a security story, the architecture story, and also the finance story, because it's all about money at the end of the day, right? Moving on. So what is the crux of it now? If you're deciding between hosted agents and prompt-based agents, so there is a very simple rule of thumb. So you usually reach for hosted agents when you are bringing your own code or framework, when you need custom or non-open AI protocols, when you want to cover your CPU and memory, whether you want to manage your state or not. But then that becomes very easy to host. That prompt is very, very simple, right? So when the problem can be expressed through prompts, and then you want to orchestrate or pilot something, get your outcomes, measure, etc., then look at the prompt-based agents wherein you don't even have to worry about any infrastructure. You want to stand something very quickly and build a very standard chat or RAG pipeline. So this is where still the prompt-based agents creation still adds the value. So the practical advice here is start with prompt agents and then graduate to hosted agents only when you need that real code or real control. Yeah. Moving on to the next one, and probably almost we are at the last. And like I was saying, this is not a fad, or this is a separate category that is emerging altogether. Why is because, of course, as you can see on the slide here, there are three hyperscalers in independently converged on a very similar architecture patterns in a very short time of window over last 6 months. AWS has Bedrock Agent Core that also advocates the same philosophy. Google has the agent engine, and then now Microsoft has the hosted agents engine. So as you can easily see, the names are different, but the shape that it is taking is very familiar. So it's all about that managed runtime, per session isolation, identity, memory state, observability, and then framework freedom that each of these cloud providers are offering you. That means we can easily conclude that the convergence is the real evidence here. So where when you actually see all three rivals building the same thing at the same time, so that clearly indicates that the pattern is real. Yeah, moving on. I think we have already covered this. The point basically is the service is in preview, but it will mature, it will graduate through eventually. So, but then if you are already hoping to adopt this, always run a check on status, whether this is still in public preview, whether this is still advisable to be deployed for some of your pilot production workloads, etc. Though it is scaling very fast, last I was aware of, they launched that in 20 Azure regions to begin with. But then do check because as Azure also expands very quickly, the service penetration also happens very quickly. So it might have already expanded to more regions. Cost part, as we also had some question in the chat. So this is a very consumption-based model. So all you are paying for is the per hour compute and the memory part, plus you will be charged for the model, which is built separately, which is based on the consumption token. It all comes down to zero when you have your idle setup, though it is still deployed. So that's the biggest benefit of this model. And finally, the permissioning, because of course that will be the first question you will be asked by your IT teams that, hey, what sort of permissions that you need. So do run a check on that as well. For we all know, right? In Azure, we have control plane and data planes. So what sort of roles that you will need if you're a developer, if you're an architect. So ensure that you have right roles, you are equipped with the right permissions to be able to develop such prototypes and even experiment that to find out that ROI for you. Moving on. Um, yeah, and that's it. I think we are almost at the end slide here. You can take a look at the repository. As I was saying, there are a few quick start samples that I'm leaving that link for. So the repository already contains this deck. And you will be able to also check out that code that we just walked through. I think with that, I thank you so much for listening in. Thank you so much, Shrushti, for also walking us all off through. And again, thanks a lot, organizing team, for having us here.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so
you so
much,
much.
everyone. Just a quick
Yeah,
one before we leave. There is also a Foundry toolkit which you can find as an extension in your Visual Studio Code. Do try that as well and spin up your Foundry hosted agents deployed directly via the toolkit. It might be very handy for you. Thank you so much again, everyone. Sorry for taking a bit of more time, but I hope that it was worth for you all. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks, Meeta and team, for organizing such a great event. Again, thanks a lot for having us.
yeah. Thank you so much, Shrushti and Bhushan, for sharing a valuable information with us. We really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. So with that, I would like to invite our next speaker, Pratap Reddy. Hi, Pratap.